Welcome to Support Life, a program focusing on current social issues from a life-affirming perspective. I'm Gavin Baulch and my guest is Ben O'Brien. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Gavin.
Now, I hear that John West's tuners are not always the best.
Well, that depends. Gavin, if you come from Port Lincoln, then you might have another opinion.
Okay, so you're in tuna country.
Yes, I was born in Port Lincoln in South Australia, famous tuna fishing town, and famous for certain tuna fishermen who've come from there. Tony Santic, who won the Melbourne Cup with Mackay Diva 3 years in a row, was a tuna fisherman in Port Lincoln. Also Dean Lucan, who won an Olympic gold medal, was a tuna fisherman there. He learnt his tuna fishing, poling the tuna in, and that's what gave him the strength to become a weightlifter. So it's got its own famous faces there.
Great. So here's a really good greeny cause, pole fishing.
That's right.
Tuna. That's great.
Yes. They've now pioneered the technique of tuna farms, and that's how they do it these days. They catch a school of tuna and bring them into shore and farm them, and then when they're fully grown, they can harvest them.
Fantastic. So these are your young formative years.
Well, not really. We left Port Lincoln when I was very young, but I've still got relatives there, and they're involved in these activities. So it's nice to go back and visit them. It's a lovely seaside town. It's a beautiful countryside over there. So I like going back there whenever I can. Not often enough, unfortunately.
Yes. But
I grew up mostly in Victoria, for the most part in a little town called Seymour, which is about 100 kilometres north of Melbourne on the Hume Highway, and was a pretty ordinary country town, pretty ordinary childhood, and nothing really remarkable about it. I just went to the local school, and I played football in one of the local underage teams. Wasn't very outstanding at that, but I enjoyed it. So then after school, I came down to Melbourne and studied and got a job down here. So
then we're going to talk about some of your adventures a little bit later, but it seemed to come out of an adventure that got someone awarded the DCM. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, Gavin, the DCM is the Distinguished Conduct Medal, and my father was awarded the DCM in 1942 for action against the Japanese at Milne Bay in New Guinea. The Japanese were landing troops at Milne Bay in an attempt to take Port Moresby, and my father's company was sent out to meet the Japanese troops. They were told that the Japanese would not have any tanks. When they encountered the Japanese, they had two light tanks called Hargo tanks. And the problem was they had no weapons with which to fight these tanks. So my father had to go and obtain a weapon. He had to go back to the Bren gun carrier, and he obtained an anti-tank rifle. So it wasn't a bazooka that could blow up a tank, it was just a rifle, but it could shoot through the armour of the tank. And he went back to the front line, and this action happened in the middle of the night, but he lay down in the middle of the road, and he was only about 10 yards away from the tank when he fired on it, and he stopped these two tanks. He was injured in the action, and they had to retreat and march back to their base along the coastline. It took them about 3 days to do that. So he carried that injury with him for the rest of his life, that injury he received in that action. And for that he was awarded the DCM. He risked his life to help out his mates. And the significant thing about this was that it was the first time that the Japanese had been defeated in a land battle, or up to that stage they hadn't been defeated in a land battle in the Second World War. So this was something I feel that's been a formative thing in my life, in that my father had the courage to go out and, using equipment that's perhaps not up to the purpose, or as perhaps we could say he was under-equipped for the task, against overwhelming enemy and against an enemy that's seemingly invincible, he was still prepared to take the risk and risk his life to do what he could to take on that enemy.
That's a very formidable story, because we've got courage. It was single-handed. His life was at stake, and yet it's, for the Japanese, their first defeat, or their moving forward, was stopped. That's incredible.
Yes, although his action didn't stop them entirely, they continued on their way, but they were then pushed back by his battalion, and that was their first defeat. So that's another point, that his action didn't directly stop them, didn't directly stop their advance, but it did play a part in doing that. And we're all like that in a way. We take action about something, we see something and we want to do something about it, we take some action, we think this isn't going to be very effective, but we have to do it anyway.
Ben, thank you for that. You're watching Support Life, and we'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Support Life. I'm Gavin Baulch, and my guest is Ben O'Brien from the Helpers of God's Precious Infants. Ben, we started to unravel your dad's experience in the Second World War, and how indirectly, or in the DNA, there was this sort of courage, this thinking of others, laying your life down a little bit. You've worked with a range of ages of people. You worked for Big Brother, Big Sister. Tell us about that.
Yes, that's a program, I believe it runs all around the world, and it's a very successful program and well worth being involved in if you're thinking you need to get involved in a program. So I was involved with that for a couple of years, and you just make friends with a child. They match you up with someone who's in some way got need for some friendship of an older adult, and you just do things with them on weekends, usually once a week, but it's a lot of fun and very rewarding too. With whenever you do these things, you do it for the love of someone else, for someone else's sake. You always find though that what you gain is far more than what you've given to anyone. Yes. So that's a theme that runs through any activity you do. So you're rewarded without looking for it in wonderful ways, seeing changes in people. Yes, I think if you go out looking for rewards, you won't get them. If you go out there to give yourself to others, then you find that you're rewarded in a way that you never imagined. Mm-hmm. Now, you were doing some soup kitchen work as well. Yes, I was on the soup van for a number of years, probably 4 or 5 years, and that was in Fitzroy. Mm-hmm. So that was once a week, and we'd go out in the evening and meet people on the streets. We had certain places that we'd go to every night, yeah. And you make friends with people. We'd take soup and sandwiches with us, but we weren't trying to feed people. That was just an icebreaker. People would come to you because you had some food, but then you try to develop a relationship with those people, and an ongoing relationship. So you'd see them every week. All right. So what's the story about the soup kitchen and the shotgun? Well, it wasn't exactly a shotgun, but we went one night to a place in North Melbourne, and there were some fellas living in this place in an abandoned house, and they were squatting there. And they actually had permission from the owner to squat there, so it was a bit of an unusual situation. But anyway, these fellas were squatting there, and we would go and see them every week, and these fellas were pretty rough, because you can imagine if they're living on the streets, it's usually because they've had a tough upbringing. A lot of them have been involved in crime. And there was one guy there in particular who everyone was scared of. So anyway, we've gone there this night and he's come out and he's wearing a jacket and he's come out on the street to meet us, and he pulled out from under the jacket a sawn-off 22 and he pointed it at himself and said, "I'm going to shoot myself."
So you're in your 20s, right?
Yes, I was in my 20s then. This was a long time ago. And most of the other people on that night were also around that age group. But we had a fellow who was a bit older and he was able to take charge of the situation and talk to this fellow, and he was able to get the firearm off him. And then we were trying to diffuse the situation. So we offered to take him to another place in Fitzroy, some accommodation in Fitzroy, to stay the night there, and we thought that might help to calm things down. So we all piled in the van with him and the sawn-off 22, and we drove over to Fitzroy. Well, we thought, as we approached, we thought it's not a good idea if we turn up here with the this firearm. So we decided that I would get out of the van and wait on the street corner somewhere in Melbourne in the middle of the night with this sawn-off rifle under my coat, trying to look as inconspicuous as possible, of course. So, and then they drove off in the van with him, and I was just hoping the police wouldn't come past and ask me what I was doing, because I would have been in all sorts of trouble. I couldn't have explained what I was doing there on the street corner.
You certainly draw the short straw that night, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Anyway, things worked out all right. He calmed down in the end, and he was willing to let us keep this firearm, which was then disposed of legally. I don't think I'd better say any more than that.
Okay. Well, it seems as though you've got a heart for folks. It doesn't matter what the age or gender or anything. There you are, finding yourself doing the hard yards with people.
Well, I don't like to think of it as hard yards. I just felt that I was drawn to giving myself to other people in some way. So I actually started out at a St Vincent de Paul conference, a local conference. Most of the people in those conferences were a bit older than I was, so they said, "Oh, if we get young people, they always go to the soup van." So they sent me to the soup van. So then I started doing that. And then I got involved in prison ministry, so I'd go and visit people in prison. I didn't do that for very long. I found I wasn't very good at that. So then I ended up with the Big Brother, Big Sister program. So there was this kind of progression. But before all that, I had to get a stronger faith in order to do these things. That was the key. And that came about because I made a decision that I would start going to Mass on Friday nights. And when I started doing that, I found that I came to a deeper relationship with Christ. And through that deeper relationship with him, I could then come to a deeper relationship with other people. And I could see needs in society, and I wanted to do something about those needs.
Mm-hmm. So, because Christ was significant in your life and saw you had significance because of his sacrificial act, there's your father's sacrificial act, taking a risk. Now you're being moved more into thinking of those who don't have a voice, those who have a need.
Yes. So I've done the soup van, the prison visits, the Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and they were all very good things to do. But I was really searching for the poorest of the poor, for those who have absolutely nothing. And I think I found that in the unborn child.
Wow. Okay, now, the only thing you hear first regarding the unborn child is a woman who's pregnant heading to an abortion clinic, and they just want someone to spill their guts to?
Yes, we've had that happen where we go down there and we meet someone outside the abortion business, and they almost tell you their life story.
Yeah. Well, Ben, we're going to hold it there. You're watching Support Life, and we'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Support Life. I'm Gavin Baulch, and my guest is Ben O'Brien from the Helpers of God's Precious Infants. Ben, we're talking about the fact that you're with people that don't have a voice, particularly the unborn, and you've got 2 ears and a mouth, and that's how you approach things. You're a listener. And some of these people, tell you their life story?
Yes, there are sometimes people who come along and they are obviously desperately in need of someone to talk to, and they will basically spill their guts to you about what their situation is. So it's very important to be there for those people, to be listening to them, to hear what they have to say. And often you find that they have genuine concerns in their life, that they think, I can't cope with having this child, I can't cope with raising this child. We try to find out, well, what is it that's really driving you to think that, and can we solve that problem? Because we don't feel that abortion solves anything. A woman who has an abortion goes home to the same problems that she left when she left the home that morning. So we look at the actual problem that she has and try to solve that. So our work is all based on making a personal relationship with these people and trying to get to know them as a friend, put them in touch with other people who can be a good support for them during pregnancy, and walk with them for the journey of pregnancy and some time afterwards as well, if they still need that. So we find that for some women their needs are very complex, and we try to meet those needs as they arise. So we find that maybe they need some accommodation, we provide that. Then they need something else, we provide that. They might need someone to talk to, we provide that, a phone contact, someone they can just ring up, and if they're having a tough day, they can just blubber on the phone to this friend and get it all off your chest, and then it doesn't seem so bad. So we try to build them up so that they can continue with the pregnancy if that's what they choose to do.
So what we're looking at here is a simple, loving, holistic approach, caring for the mother who's pregnant and the child yet to be born.
Well, you can't help one without helping the other, and you can't hurt one without hurting the other. That's what we say. So there is a connection between mother and child, and that's a physical connection, but also we believe a spiritual connection. And we think that what helps one helps the other, and what hurts one hurts the other. So it's a unique situation because you can do other works that will help people, the homeless, for example, but they can help themselves once you've gotten to a certain point. With the unborn child, that child can't help itself. You need to help the mother if you're going to do anything for the unborn child. So it's a different situation from most things that you encounter.
So why do you think, what you've just said doesn't show up in the papers. You're really just put down as these intruding people on someone's rights.
Yes, so the thing they're trying to say about us is that we're invading women's privacy. What we do is we offer someone a pamphlet. Now, offering a person a pamphlet can't possibly be seen as an invasion of their privacy. If they want to talk to us, we're there to listen. If they don't want to talk to us, well, we can't do anything about that. And they can go and do whatever they do after that. So we can't, and we don't try to physically stop anyone from going into the building where they do the abortions. That would be illegal. If we if we tried to block the entrance, we'd be arrested. So we've never done that. And ironically, though, we are often accused of doing that. But it's really an absurd accusation.
You know, I think one of the most, there's going to be a different tack, wonderful things about this exclusion zone that they're looking at is, by the grace of God, it's giving the women a time, a few more minutes to walk and ponder something that you've shown, something that you've shared. So I feel that should that go through, it's actually a kindness.
Well, we're there to show kindness to people. We understand that we're not going to win anybody over by shouting at them or protesting or demonstrating. We're not there to protest. We're often described as protesters, but our work is not really a protest. And we try to organise it so it doesn't look like a protest. We'll typically have a couple of people standing off to one side praying, and another one or two people who are on the footpath who are designated as people who can approach those who are going in and talk to them and show them some kindness, and hopefully in the few seconds you've got to do that, if people respond, you can establish a relationship. That can be a stepping stone. Perhaps you can take the pressure off those people, the pressure that's driving them there. Often when women come along to the abortion business, they're saying, I prayed all last night, I prayed that there'd be a sign. I prayed that there'd be a sign there from God that I wouldn't go ahead with this. And when they see us there out the front, they say, that's the sign. And even the abortionists themselves will tell a woman, you can change your mind right up to the last minute. So if you can change your mind right up to the last minute, why can't you do that by talking to us? You know, we're there at the last minute for you.
Ben, you know, that's an important thought to carry, that there's always a possibility to change one's mind for the better for both the mother, the woman who's pregnant, and the child. And I'm very grateful that you're there with others, quietly, respectfully, praying and sharing and giving hope for the unborn and the mother who carries that child. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Gavin.
You've been watching Support Life, and that's all for our program today. Join us again next week. Goodbye.